My wedding was too inconvenient this year, but the $3,900 ski lodge rental and lift tickets charged to me weren't. I waited until they arrived, then contacted the property, flagged the payment, and canceled the rental in full. By 7:18 p.m., the fireplace was out, the doors locked, and my sister messaged, "Did you seriously do that?" I smirked and replied, "This is just the beginning." I knew they weren't coming to my wedding long before the invites even went out. It started subtly. My mom saying things like, "Don't expect too much from everyone, Tony. People are busy." Then my sister Allison dropped the bomb like it was just a minor inconvenience. "This year's just not great timing, you know." Her husband Doug stood beside her with that smug, passive look he always wears when he's pretending he doesn't have a say. It wasn't a discussion. It was a notification. They weren't coming to my wedding. Not because of some emergency or tragic conflict. No, just because it wasn't convenient. They didn't even try to fake it with sympathy. What made it worse was the condition my parents attached when I first got engaged to Jin. "We'll only support it if you do things properly." My dad said, "A church wedding, not that backyard nonsense you're talking about." I've never once seen them hold Allison to those kinds of standards. They threw her a party for getting through community college. I had a 2-bedroom place barely. I got it on a tight mortgage with Jen while juggling 2 jobs. Still, they had the nerve to ask if Allison and Doug could crash with us for a few weeks while their apartment got fumigated. We said no. And suddenly I was selfish, ungrateful. Family helps each other. Mom had said that must only apply when I'm the one doing the helping. Fast forward. I had already written off the fact that my own parents and sister wouldn't be at my wedding. No gift, no call, no nothing. But then in mid-January I get a text. No message, no emojis, just a photo. My sister Doug and my parents in full ski gear standing in front of some massive stone lodge. Big grins, champagne flutes, mountains behind them. It didn't take long to put the pieces together. I went straight to my credit card account and there it was. $3,900 charged for a ski lodge rental in Aspen. My card, my name, the same card I had once added Allison to when she swore she needed it just temporarily to pay off medical bills after she slipped on some ice. She never got around to taking herself off. The rental, the lift passes, some fancy dinner reservation. They charged it all to me. These people who couldn't be bothered to come to my wedding were now enjoying a luxury vacation using my money, and they didn't even try to hide it. Jen was furious. I didn't say much. I just took screenshots, called the bank, and waited. The reservation was refundable up to 48 hours before check-in. They were scheduled to arrive Thursday, so I let them get there first. They checked in at 2:05 p.m. I called the lodge at 2:37. Told them the card holder never authorized the charges. Told the bank too. The whole thing unraveled fast. The lodge locked the doors remotely as per their policy with flagged fraud. The fireplace is turned off. Staff were alerted not to let them back in after they stepped out to dinner. At 7:18 p.m., I got a text from Allison. Just 6 words. "Did you seriously do that?" I stared at it for a while before I replied. This is just the beginning, and I meant it. Because when they came back from Aspen with their tails between their legs, the real fun began. They were supposed to be gone for 7 days. They came back in 3. Sunday night, 10:41 p.m. My Ring camera lit up. Allison and Doug were dragging luggage up their porch steps 2 blocks away at my parents' house. I watched the feed twice. I guess I just wanted to enjoy it a little. No ski trip photos, no smug group shots, just my sister's frizzy ponytail, Doug wrestling with a suitcase wheel, and my mom opening the door looking confused like the surprise return wasn't in the plan. Monday morning, I woke up to 9 missed calls, 6 voicemails, and a wall of texts. Some from Allison, some from my mom, one from my dad that was just, "Call me." I didn't. I worked like normal, made coffee, answered emails. Around noon, the knock came. It wasn't a family dropped by. It was sharp and repeated, like they were giving me a countdown before they kicked the door in. When I opened it, they didn't even pretend to be polite. My parents, Allison, and Doug all stood there like some bizarre firing squad. Doug had sunglasses on his head like he'd forgotten the trip was over. Allison walked right in without a word. Doug followed. My parents came last. I didn't stop them. I didn't even move. First thing Allison said, "You are out of your mind." She didn't ask why. She didn't apologize. She didn't acknowledge the fact that they charged nearly $4,000 to my card without permission. She acted like I pulled the rug out from under a completely valid plan. Doug stepped in, arms folded, chin up like he was about to deliver a closing argument. He said the whole thing could have been avoided if I hadn't been so damn petty. My dad nodded like it was a courtroom and Doug just nailed his case. My mom didn't speak right away. She just looked at me like I had turned into a stranger. I asked if they seriously thought it was fine to spend my money after skipping the one day in my life I asked them to show up. Allison rolled her eyes. She actually rolled her eyes. She said something about how I clearly didn't need that much support if I was still able to throw a wedding. That hit weird. Like she resented me for making things work without them. Then Doug told me flat out that I needed to reimburse them. "You cost us a week of vacation. That's on you." I laughed. I shouldn't have. It only made them angrier. My dad stepped forward and told me I was tearing the family apart over a misunderstanding. I reminded him it wasn't a misunderstanding when someone steals from you with a smile. My mom finally said something. Then she said they weren't going to keep letting me act like a victim. That was it. I told them to get out. They didn't move at first. They just stood there, trying to look bigger than they were. Like intimidation would fix what they broke. I repeated it once and they left. Not because they respected me, but because they realized I wasn't backing down. As they walked out, Allison said over her shoulder, "You're going to regret this. Maybe, but not for the reason she thinks." Because 2 days later, karma showed up. Not with drama, not with yelling. With something simple, unexpected, and absolutely perfect. And they were going to need my help. But I hadn't decided if they deserved it. 2 days after the blowout at my place, the cold hit like a hammer. The kind of cold that stops being just weather and starts causing damage. The local news called it a sudden Arctic drop. Wind chill hit -15. Snow froze solid in the gutters. Pipes in old houses, especially the ones with half-insulated basement, started failing all over town. I didn't think about them at first. I was in my house, warm, quiet, peaceful. Jen and I were watching a rerun of Mythbusters while chili simmered on the stove. Then my phone lit up. First was a missed call from my dad. Then a voicemail, then a text from my mom. "Call us now. Basement flooded. Power's off. Please." Then Allison chimed in. "Water everywhere. Doug says the valve is jammed. You know how to fix it. Can you just come over?" "No." "Hi." "No. Sorry. Just panic and a request." Their house was built in the 60s and patched together 100 times since. I grew up in that house, so I knew every weak spot in it. And the basement was always a ticking time bomb in cold weather. The pipes ran through a crawl space behind the furnace, and the main shutoff valve required a wrench, a specific angle, and a bit of force. I learned all that the hard way during a flood when I was 17. While my dad stood on the stairs yelling, and my mom called a plumber who never showed. Doug had no chance. I told Jen what happened. She didn't say anything right away, just waited. After a second, she said, "You're not actually thinking of helping them, are you?" And I didn't want to, but I was, not because they deserved it, but because I couldn't stand the idea of sitting in a warm house while the place I grew up drowned. That house was full of bad memories, but some good ones, too. It was complicated. I didn't text anyone back. Just grabbed my jacket, toolbox, and left. When I got to the street, I didn't even need the address. Water was already pouring out of the garage like a creek. Doug was in the driveway, soaked up to his knees, holding a wrench like it had betrayed him. Allison was pacing on the porch, phone to her ear. My mom was inside yelling something about towels. My dad wasn't in sight. They all stopped when they saw me. No one greeted me. No thank you. Just silence and wet footprints. I didn't say anything either. Walked into the garage, down the back hallway into the basement entrance. And yeah, it was bad. The water had climbed halfway up the heater. Cardboard boxes were floating. Old furniture was already swollen and ruined. The carpet was sludge. I found the shut-off valve wedged behind the furnace, exactly where it always was, rusted, cold. I had to kneel in ankle-deep water to reach it. The wrench barely gripped, but I forced it anyway. After 2 solid attempts, it cracked free and the water hissed to a stop. The silence after that was deafening. Just the sound of dripping in my boots slashing back up the stairs. They were all waiting for me in the kitchen. My mom finally said, "Is it off?" I nodded. My dad appeared then, arms crossed. Not a single word. I looked at all of them and said, "You need a cleanup crew within the hour. Mold's going to be a problem." My mom looked at my dad. "We can't afford that right now." No one said anything after that. They were waiting for me to volunteer, to offer to pay. Maybe they thought that was the real reason I came. It wasn't. I turned and walked out the door. I was halfway down the driveway when Allison called after me. "Tony, seriously?" I didn't turn around. Just got in my truck and left. By the time I got home, I had 3 new messages. One from Doug. "Real classy move today. You think this makes you the bigger man?" One from my mom. "I hope you're proud of what you're doing to this family." And one from my dad which just said, "Never come back here again." I showed them to Jen. She didn't say anything, just shook her head and went back to chopping onions. They thought that was the end. But the worst part hadn't even started. 3 days after I shut off the water, the silence broke. Not because they apologized. They didn't, but because they realized just how deep they were in it. I got a text from Lily, my cousin who lived nearby and knew everything before it hit the air. She sent me a photo. My mom and Allison were in the front yard of my parents' place dragging out what looked like a bloated carpet. It was so waterlogged it left a trail on the concrete. Doug stood near the porch holding a trash bag like he didn't know what to do with it. Lily captioned it, "Well, looks like the basement isn't going great." I didn't reply. The next day, I got a DM from a guy named Keith, someone I used to work with in construction years back. We did renovation gigs together. He told me Allison called him after I gave her his number. Said he came by, did a walkthrough, quoted them for demo and mold remediation. Total was a little over $12,000, which was actually generous for the scope. They never called him back. Doug apparently tried to haggle him down to half. Said he could do most of it himself. Keith left and didn't bother following up. He told me they don't want help. They want miracles. Meanwhile, the basement started to rot. I'm not exaggerating. Mold on the lower walls, a weird smell leaking up the stairs. They had no flood insurance, only a bare-bones policy, and the company wouldn't touch it. So now they were living in a half-usable house in the middle of winter with their pride duct taped together. And then they made the dumbest move they could have. They tried to hold a family meeting. Not at their house. Too wet. At Allison and Doug's apartment, the 1-bedroom they used to rent before moving in with my parents. Apparently, they'd kept it under Allison's name as a fallback. Never told my dad. When I didn't respond to the invitation, my mom left me a voicemail. "Tony, I know you're upset. We all are. But this is a time for healing. If you won't come for us, come for your grandmother's memory. You know she'd want us together." That was low using her name like that. Jen didn't say much, but I could see her jaw tighten when she heard the message. Then they started calling her. Not me, her. My mom left a message, then Allison, then Doug. All basically saying the same thing. "We need to talk to Tony. He's isolating. He's not himself." Jen blocked all 3 of them by the next morning. But that wasn't what pushed me over. It was the part where Doug, in a final attempt, emailed her from a work address with the subject line, "For your sanity and in the body, please do what's right. He's dragging this out. We're family. This should be over." I stared at that email for a long time. That's when I remembered the deed. Back when my grandmother passed, I was the only one who went through her papers. Everyone else was either too emotional or just didn't care. I scanned everything, birth certificates, wills, property titles, and saved it all to a cloud account I hadn't touched in years. I logged in. Took me 20 minutes to find it, but there it was, plain as day. Her will stated that she retained a 50% ownership of the house she'd co-purchased with my parents in 1993, something I'd forgotten until that moment. And since she left everything to me in writing and no one had ever formally bought her share, That 50% legally passed to me when she died. My parents had been living in a house I have owned. They never updated the deed, never refinanced. They just acted like it was fully theirs. And now with the damage, the insurance mess, the unpaid repairs, that house was a sinking ship, half mine, and all of it was uninsured, crumbling, and unlivable. They had no idea I knew, but now I did. And what came next was going to make Aspen look like a warm-up. I didn't tell anyone right away. I sat on it for 2 days, let it settle in my chest like a slow burn. Half the house was mine, legally, irrefutably mine. I went back through the will, scanned it again, double-checked the title. I even called a buddy who worked in probate. He confirmed what I already knew. The house was co-owned, and since no transfer of ownership ever happened after Grandma died, her half went straight to me. And now I own 50% of a flooded, uninsured, mold-ridden property that the other half owners wanted me to magically forget existed. On the 3rd day, I filed a petition action. It's a legal move. When co-owners of a property can't agree, one can force the sale of the entire thing. I filed quietly online through the county portal. It cost $274. I didn't say a word to my parents. Not yet. The unexpected part. It wasn't them who found out first. It was the bank. Turns out their mortgage had been on a modification plan since 2018. One of those deals where they avoid foreclosure by agreeing to weird conditions, including no major structural damage without notification. The second I filed the action, it triggered a legal flag. The bank got notified and immediately requested an inspection of the property. They showed up unannounced, took one look at the basement, and freaked. That same day, I got a furious call from Allison. "You did something. I don't know what, but some guy from the bank just came and told Mom the house is at risk of default." I didn't say anything. She kept going. "What did you do?" I told her, "I filed what I'm legally entitled to. You remember Grandma left me her share, right?" Silence. Then she hung up. Less than an hour later, my dad called. This time he wasn't yelling. He was begging. He asked me to reconsider for the sake of the family. He asked if we could talk man-to-man. I told him to put it in writing. They didn't expect me to follow through. They thought I'd bluff. They thought I'd fold like I always had. But I had every document, every signature, every clause. Then the fallout really hit. Doug got fired from his job. It wasn't because of me. It was because he missed work during the Aspen debacle and lied to his boss about why. Said it was a family emergency. Then his boss saw the ski lodge photos online. Allison had tagged herself. They called him in, asked for an explanation, and he snapped, stormed out, got written up, then fired the next week for insubordination. Now they were jobless, house half unlivable, and under legal review. They still hadn't seen the worst because the bank decided the damage to the property violated the terms of their mortgage modification. And since the basement had been neglected for over a week, they were preparing to initiate foreclosure. All because they tried to teach me a lesson. They called another family meeting. This time they begged me to come. Promised things would be different. Said they'd figure out how to move forward together. I went not to make peace, to deliver one last warning. I didn't go to that last meeting for them. I went to end it. Allison texted me the night before trying to sound reasonable. "We need to stop this before it goes too far," she said like I hadn't already. Watched them cross that line 10 times over. I didn't reply, just packed a folder with everything they were too lazy or arrogant to read. The apartment was worse than I expected. Dim, cramped, a sour smell coming from the sink. The blinds were half closed, like even daylight didn't want to be there. My dad stood when I walked in. My mom stayed seated, folded hands, dramatic silence. Allison was sitting with a notebook in front of her like she drafted some kind of peace plan. Doug had his phone out, not even pretending to care. They didn't start with an apology. That would have been too easy. They started with strategy. My dad said they talked to someone who told them petition actions could drag on if contested. Allison said she and Doug were willing to do the cleanup on the house if I paused the legal stuff. My mom said we needed to focus on healing. Then Allison offered to pay me something for my share later when things settled. She wouldn't name a number. She just looked at me like that should be enough. Doug finally spoke. We all made mistakes. You got your point across. Can we stop burning the whole thing down now? I set the folder on the table. Inside, copies of the deed, my grandmother's will, legal notices, the court filing, everything that proved they had no idea how deep they'd stepped. Then I told them, you have 30 days to buy me out or the house gets sold under court supervision. The bank has already been alerted. It's not up to me anymore. Allison looked like she was going to say something, but didn't. My mom whispered, you don't have to do this. My dad stared at the papers like they were written in another language. I got up, told them that if they tried to interfere with the process, they'd be dealing with the county now, not me. As I walked to the door, Allison finally said it. You're doing this because you hate us. I didn't look back. I just said, no, I'm doing this because I finally don't care enough to protect you. 30 days came and went. They couldn't come up with the money. The bank foreclosed. I got a letter stating I'd receive a small portion of the sale once the fees were deducted. It wasn't much, but it was cleaner than any apology they could have faked. They moved into a rental in a worse part of town. No yard, no storage, just enough space to keep blaming everyone else. They told distant relatives the house was taken from them, an illegal trap. My mom even hinted I'd somehow cheated them, but no one cared enough to ask for proof. Then karma circled back faster than I expected. 2 months later, Allison called. Doug had been arrested. Fraud. He'd filed for unemployment while working under the table for a friend's construction firm. Claimed thousands in benefits he wasn't entitled to. They caught it during a state audit. She was panicked, crying, asking if I still knew people at the agency I used to contract with, if there was any way I could make it disappear. I told her the truth. I still had contacts. I still knew who to talk to, but I wasn't going to. She got quiet. Then she said, you don't mean that. You wouldn't let him go to jail. I said, you're wrong, and hung up. I later heard Doug took a plea deal. Community service. A fine big enough to wreck their finances again. I don't know how they paid it. I don't care. Jen and I moved into a new place a few months later. Not a mansion, but solid warm hours. No drama, no uninvited guests. Sometimes we walked the dog past the old neighborhood and Janelle asked if I ever think about the house. I usually shake my head, but once I said, I think about the fireplace. She looked confused. I smiled and added, it was the first thing to go out. That ski lodge fire. Aspen, that was the exact moment the lie ended and everything started burning down from warmth to cold in seconds. And the truth, they were right all along. That was just the beginning. The end came when they finally realized I didn't owe them anything. Not anymore. The update. A few months passed. No calls, no texts, no accidental run-ins. It was quiet. Too quiet. Honestly, I started to wonder if maybe they'd finally accepted it was over. That there'd be no reunion. No dramatic reconciliation. Just the silence we'd earned. Then one morning, I opened the mailbox and saw it. A card. No return address. Just my name in handwriting I hadn't seen in a while. My mom's. Inside was a birthday card. No joke. Just one of those glittery generic ones from a supermarket. The kind she used to buy in stacks and forget to sign. But this one had a message. Family is forever. You'll see. Love, Mom. That was it. No apology. No acknowledgement of anything. Just that line like a warning or a promise. I didn't tell Jen. I didn't text back. I didn't throw it out either. I put it in a drawer because I knew deep down they weren't done trying. But neither was I.